Okay, what's up? Good morning, everybody. Good morning up top here on Instagram. Good morning down here on Facebook. Good to see everybody. Thank you for being here on Leadership Thursday. I am Dr. Jeff Moore. I'm currently serving as the CEO of ICE and lead faculty for the lumbar and cervical spine courses. Thank you for joining us on the daily show. As always, whether you're here live on Facebook or Instagram, whether you're taking in the podcast at another time, love having you here. Thanks for joining the community. So first things first, if it's Leadership Thursday, it's Gut Check Thursday. So let's do this. Hey, what's up, Onward Denver? Gut Check Thursday this week is Death by Imam. So if you don't know the Death by format, it's going to be an every minute on the minute where you've got to get in the work and you're going to go until you can no longer get in the work. So what the work is going to be is 1 air squat, 1 burpee, and 1 push-up on minute 1. On minute 2, though, so you can imagine minute 1, you're going to have a lot of rest. On minute 2, it's going to be 2 air squats, 2 burpees, 2 push-ups. On minute 3, 3 air squats, 3 burpees, 3 push-ups. You're going to keep going up like this every minute until you can no longer get in the work in that minute, and that's going to be your score. So very, very low equipment, no equipment. So hoping we get major participation from all of you, from your friends, from your patients. I hope to see a lot of action on Instagram. Make sure you're tagging hashtag IceTrained and hashtag GutCheckThursday so we can follow along and have a look at that. As far as courses coming up, we have all the things. If you look in January, we pretty much fire up every single course that we have. As all of you know, we canceled all of our courses here at the end of November and all of December due to the COVID pandemic. I'm thrilled to see some vaccines hitting the market. Sounds like Moderna's might go live on Monday. So wonderful to see that we're going to have finally some protection against that. So looking forward to seeing you all out on the road and online in 2021. So team, 6 months ago, I did an episode on the show following the death of George Floyd that was titled Reacting in Crisis. And at that time, I promised directly to you action in the domain of racism, both personally and professionally at the organizational level. Well, it's been 6 months this week. So here we are. And to all of those that I have had conversations with over the past 6 months, all of those that I've watched YouTube videos with, discussed books with, sincere thanks, because it's been a really fruitful and incredible start on this journey. So I want to start today by just talking about 2 areas where I've reflected a particular large amount that have guided my personal action, because I think that maybe some of you all listening are on a similar path, and sharing our work can help one another as we all try to move forward. And then I want to discuss what we're doing at the organizational level, because that was very much a part of that post 6 months ago where the promise was to be made good on 6 months from that date. So perhaps the biggest single thing or piece of learning for me has been that the statement, "I don't see color," one that I have quite honestly and unfortunately been proud of my entire life, should really be something to be embarrassed about. Full transparency, the first time that I can directly recall encountering racism in my life was in St. Augustine, in graduate school, when we were picking internship sites. And one of my black friends said, "Well, shoot, I don't want to go there," right? Speaking about an area of the rural South where he did not feel comfortable going. Now, let's pause here and think about how many opportunities I had to have missed up until this point to really only be encountering these conversations now. And this has been a huge part of the reflection. I mean, I come to this with a standard suite of excuses, right? Grew up in a small rural area of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan where we had almost zero diversity or any discussion around it. But folks, I traveled plenty. Back then, afterwards, lived in Grand Rapids, lived in Colorado, areas that had diversity. The unfortunate and uncomfortable reality is that I chose not to lean into this stuff, right? I chose to stay comfortable, right? I chose the luxury of not seeing color. And that's exactly what it is, right? It's a luxury to not engage in these challenging spaces. Consciously, unconsciously, doesn't really matter. The reality is that is a decision to not engage in those spaces. It is a luxury that you can take if you think it doesn't affect you, right? It's a privilege. And it's an unfortunate one that was available, and it's unfortunate that I took it. And that's not even the most troubling part of the reflection. when that comment was made by my friend, you would think that that would burn a hole in you. That you would say that's nonsense, that people don't think they can go to certain areas, that this stuff still even exists. Instead, my reaction was far more along the lines of, well, those people are crazy, right? I'm glad I'm not that way. I'm glad my family isn't that way, right? Ultimately, another very comfortable choice that avoided any real, actual, uncomfortable work. And I think reflecting back on that pattern, it's why I'm so much further behind where I need to be in this space. It's been those choices, those convenient choices across time. And the reality is that the problem is that change happens exactly when people who don't think they're affected begin to engage, right? Because these confrontations, these arguments, if you will, these belief systems that people get rooted in achieve a kind of homeostasis, right? Where people say, look, I feel this way and you're not changing my mind. And the other side feels the same way. And then you've got a ton of people who aren't playing the game at all, what you might call the neutral variables, right? Who don't think this stuff affects them, right? Not seeing color enables you to remain on the sidelines and be one of those neutral variables that isn't doing anything. The issue is that the moment the people who aren't engaging, who are taking that luxury, begin to engage, this stalemate between people who have these rooted beliefs becomes lopsided and real change starts taking place. For that exact reason, right, I'm seeing color now, right? I'm acknowledging the challenges that it unfortunately still comes with. And I'm vowing to act every single day on that, right? Not seeing color has completely taken away my ability to have any positive influence in a space that desperately needs it. And for those of you that are in those same shoes, I really encourage you to reflect on that as well and reach out if you want to have that conversation. It's still certainly a growth area for myself. The second thing I want to reflect on is the incredible underappreciated importance of people like me do things like that. So over the past 6 months, I've spent a lot of time trying to better understand at a real visceral level race-specific barriers. Now, I'm aware there's a lot of barriers in this country, right? And a lot of them are interrelated, and I totally get that. But for the sake of this conversation and a lot of the time I've spent in the past 6 months, it's been focused on race-specific barriers. Two great windows I've had into this space have been the ICE opportunity, which we'll discuss down below, in South College applications. And it's been incredible. The majority of applicants for the ICE opportunity, a lot of my black colleagues, a lot of black students I've had conversations with, I've talked to have volunteered the barrier of, well, people like me don't do things like that, right? That was one of the limitations they perceived all along, right? Well, I don't see people like me in that space. Speaking very specifically to physical therapy and even more specifically to leadership positions in physical therapy, right? That this is consistently a major barrier, simply not seeing that space, right, is somewhere that people like you belong, and that perception being a massive barrier to engaging forward in that direction. And what's unacceptable is that we all know this, right? I mean, when we talk about marketing, how often do we talk about you're trying to market in a way that makes people say, oh, people like me do things like that. And thus they seek out that product. They seek out that treatment because they see, oh, that's somewhere that people like me go, something that people like me do. Right? The more people see themselves in these spaces, the more comfortable it is for them to engage, the more they want to engage, the more they're able to bring their talents to that space. It is beyond upsetting to think about how many incredibly talented people that we've missed out on in our profession, in this company, right? Because they did not feel like it was a space they belonged. That is a very race-specific, color-specific barrier that we have got to shatter with intentional action. Those two things, not seeing color and not understanding how significant that barrier of not feeling like it's a space where you belong, have taken a lot of my mental RAM and have really driven a lot of my personal action and contributed to a lot of our organizational action. On that note, though, because that's what the demand was, that's what the call was 6 months ago, was let's talk about action we've taken, not words that we're saying. On a personal level, I'm having all the conversations. I think probably the biggest step I've taken personally is simply having all the conversations that I should have been having for decades with my family, with my friends, with my colleagues about our absence in this fight. right? Some of these have been uncomfortable, some have been incredible, all of them valuable. But simply having these conversations, right, talking about what isn't being talked about has given me more growth in 6 months than the 40 years that preceded it. Another big step forward personally has been simply adding color to my life. Like, one of the things I was most shocked at when all of this came to a head 6 months ago was how white everything that I'm following is. You look at my social media, right? How just massively dominant or exclusively white the people that I'm following, the things that I'm engaged with. Again, just a tremendous lack of diversity in my own life, right? The amount of BIPOC that I now follow on social media, on podcasts, dwarfs right where it was 6 months ago. Even areas that I'm looking at consumption, like books, for example. The last time I was on Audible, looking at a handful of books I wanted to read, total aside, but wanted to read a book that was kind of chef-driven or kitchen-driven. I love engaging in that space and learning about folks who live in that world. And grabbed a book by Marcus Samuelsson, right, called Yes Chef, right? Quite honestly, the deciding factor being a person of color, right? And what wonderful insight on his upbringing in Sweden, in the States, and how relevant his color was in so much of his decision making and in so much of his life. So simply in my own personal life, choosing to add color in who I follow and what I consume has been a massive step in normalizing this for me and helping me learn from other sides of the fence. This has been just those simple steps have been incredible. But on a company level, because that's where I think our accountability as a group is so seriously needed. Let me plug my computer in. I want to make sure this doesn't croak on me here. On a company level, the first thing I've got to say is major shout out to the ICE team, who have been incredibly innovative and aggressive in pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts forward. We have collectively confronted our inaction with action over the past 6 months, and I want to share that with you. First and foremost, for those of you who follow the Hump Day Hustling email, there has been a bullet in every single episode that directly addresses the DEI space. And I've got to give a huge shout out to Morgan Denny, who is on our lead faculty, who has done a lot of the heavy lifting in that area every week, coming up with awesome resources, every single one of which I've consumed, and that all of us in the ICE faculty have been able to consume to really deepen our understanding of so many of the barriers that are in place. So that has been in that email every single week. I don't believe we've missed a week yet, and we are going to continue with that DEI bullet to make sure every week you're consuming our stuff and our content. We're also all exposing ourselves to that space and making sure this conversation stays fresh, relevant, and actionable. The ICE opportunity has been launched and we're off and rolling, right? So through a lengthy process, we identified some incredible leaders who are people of color that have now been included in our organization, and we're already having great conversations. Already incredible ideas are being stemmed, and that's what we're here for, right? Is the challenging conversations and having people of color inside of our organization kind of looking at our culture, our teachings, and helping us learn better how to reach out, how to be more inclusive, how to become more diverse. So the ICE opportunity is going to be going on forever. So we'll be accepting applications. I believe it's going to be in the middle of the year, choosing folks at the end of the year, and then having these individuals inside of our organization going forward, helping to push us in this space at all times. The ICE Foundation has been kicked off. So a portion of our proceeds now of every single course go to the ICE Foundation. And our rotating faculty at the end of every year are going to donate those funds to a cause meaningful or near and dear to their heart that fosters diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Hump Day Hustling, a bullet every week, the ICE opportunity, the ICE Foundation, all of these things are off and running and engaging inside of our organization on the daily. Conscious spending is another really big one. I will say this one's been more challenging. A lot of our live courses, so zooming out, we are aware that our organization spends a good deal of money across the country, and where that money goes matters. Not something historically we've given a ton of thought, something we're giving a lot of thought to now, as far as when we're landing in all these cities, can we put our financial support towards companies who are making efforts to make this a more diverse, equitable, inclusive space in country, in city, in town, in community? Can we do those things? Can we communicate with our hosts ahead of time on, hey, are there organizations in your town who are making a lot of effort? We'd love to support them. Now, I will admit that COVID in the second half of this year has made this very challenging. Oftentimes where we eat, drink, and even if we go is being decided more by that than anything else. But in 2021, expect a lot of conscious spending and a lot more intentional thought in regards to where we frequent and why we frequent those establishments. Just trying to support people who are trying to support people. So that is very much in place. The other stuff is now hardwired into the organization and more on the conscious spending in 2021. But it's certainly important to us that you know that we have taken significant action and that we have only just begun. I want to close this episode. I know I'm going over already. I want to close this by saying there's been some kickback, and that's been surprising. So in response to the bullets in HDH, in response to the launching of the ICE opportunity, there's been a fair amount of kickback that we are getting political, right? In that politics and PT shouldn't mix. And that's been interesting, to use a kind word. But I was in the car recently with Justin Dunaway, who, as all of you know, is lead faculty and one of my best friends. And we were driving back from the morning workout. And I was reading him one of these emails where somebody was saying, you need to keep this stuff out of your content, right? This isn't why I engage in this space. I don't want to hear about your political stances. And Justin had this great response where he said, people need to realize that inclusion is not a political stance. If it was, I would support it. Right? But his point is taken. This is not fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion is common sense and common decency that somehow we have missed out on for time eternity, right? So somehow we have not been able to get this right, right? Doing better in this space is not a political stance, right? It's common sense. So let's knock it off with creating straw men, straw women, straw people arguments. Let's just shut up and let's do better, starting immediately. Right, so all of you who are responding to our emails and our Hump Day Hustling with you don't think that this is a conversation that should be going on, my only recommendation to you is to stop consuming our content. Because this conversation is going to remain front and center, right? It's unacceptable. It hasn't been to begin with. It's here now, and it's not going anywhere. So your emails are not doing anything to stop it. If anything, you are encouraging it. But if you're seriously this uncomfortable, we encourage you to engage on this work. But if you don't want to consume our content because of it, you certainly are welcome to do so. And we would encourage you to make that decision if that's something that you need to do. So that's been surprising. There's been that kickback. But this is not going anywhere. We're only getting started. And on a final note, this conversation of being accountable to you all on these areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion is going to happen every 6 months. So this is not going to be a 6 months from George Floyd. As promised, this is going to be an every 6 months that we are going to come on here and update all of you on our efforts in this space because you all deserve accountability for this, right? We owe you that to be accountable, that we are making efforts every day, that it's baked into our company, that these organizational changes are in place and being acted on, that we are becoming more diverse by the day, that we are becoming more inclusive. You deserve to hear how and why we're doing it in the actual items that are being acted on in the company going forward, not just 6 months from the moment it began, but every 6 months for as long as the future of this thing holds out. So we'll be here again. 6 months, I'll throw it on the calendar. I want all of you to know what we're doing. Please, for those of you who are doing work in this space, reach out. We want to have these conversations. For those of you who have feedback, reach out. Let's hop on a call. Let's do better and let's do better effective immediately. Thanks everybody. Sorry it went a bit long. There was even more I wanted to say on here, but thank you for tracking. Thank you for your support. Enjoy your Thursday. I'm sure I'll see you on here soon. Take care, everybody.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.